It's Wednesday. It's 3 o'clock, and it's Together Unlocked, brought to you by the Disability Arts and Culture Organisation Together 2012. I'm Ju Gosling, artist and artistic director. With me in my studio in East London is Julie Newman, artist and our chair. I'll come back to us in a minute, but first of all, on the other half of the virtual sofa in the West Midlands, let us have some introductions and some audio description, please.
Yeah, hi and happy Wednesday to all you guys out there. So I am Robin Surgeonator, also known as Angry Fish in when I'm being an artist, and I am business director of Together 2012 and fellow co-host of Together Unlocked. Today I am sporting very clean hair, very shaven face, not so clean glasses actually. So when I think that the picture's going, actually it's not at all. It's just that my glasses seem to have fallen somewhere. Um, and those glasses being no framed silver armed glasses. I am wearing a black polo necked shirt, which has got my name and my job title at the swimming club on the right breast. It says Robin Surgeoner, junior coach. Well, it's nearly my job title anyway. And on the right hand side, my left hand side even, is the club logo, and it says Orion Swimming Club. And I'm wearing this because earlier today Josh and I recorded a podcast with one of our former international swimmers and fellow swim coach, and then we're coaching swimming this evening in a masterclass on freestyle. So there you go.
Can I just add before we go over to Josh that I think you're wearing a polo shirt rather than a polo necked shirt,
Yes,
because
you
in
are
my
correct.
book, a polo necked shirt goes up to the chin, and a polo shirt is made of a kind of strange, cottony, aerated material and has an open neck.
Yeah, I was just testing. See if there's anything.
I'm Josh Surgeonator. I'm a doctoral research student and a host of Together TV. Um, and I'm also with very clean hair and freshly shaven. Um, we've put some effort into today, haven't we?
Mm.
And it's kind of half swept back, half swept over, um, so that I can see, because I haven't had a haircut since about January. It was about 2 months overdue when lockdown started, so now it is really, really quite overdue. But I might just kind of keep it going, see if I can adopt the David Bowie look from his Glasgow set that we were watching over the weekend. Because I could pull off the coat that he was wearing, I would be very happy. That on a less stylish note, I have a blue t-shirt that says Super Dry on it, and then has lots of kind of other details and racing wheels with wings in, and lots of other different kind of bits and pieces and dates and stuff.
But no more brand advertising. So, Julie, what are you wearing?
What the clothing brands are available.
Uh, I'm currently sporting also freshly washed silver and gold hair. I'm wearing dark rimmed glasses. I'm looking at myself on the monitor just to see what I am wearing. It's sort of like it's the 1st of July and we've been doing this for a long time. Um, I've got a brand new navy blue not t-shirt, a polo shirt. That seems to be the chosen outfit of the day for Robin and myself. Uh, Unlike him, I have little anchors all over mine in white. It's a design which I quite like because I've been playing with a sextant today to have a look at it for a project that I'm doing at my studio.
And a sextant is.
It's an instrument that was created, I think, in the 1700s to help navigate seafarers to help navigate, and it measures the distance between the horizon and astral bodies.
Great. Well, we'll come back to that one. I'm Ju Gosling. I've got very short, clipped with the dog's clippers, hennaed red hair. I've got black framed glasses, black wrist splints, silver jewellery, and I'm wearing a green t-shirt that says offline. Behind us, between us, is the teddy bear Fergus, and he's today's competitor for London 2012 in our Paralympics. Our Paralympics take place around halfway through on a Wednesday. We race clockwork toys for the right of different teddy bears to wear a gold medal. Ours is always the same, a plastic one, but the Surgeoners have a whole collection of their own, which they do enjoy putting on their toys. Also, coming up later, we've got Virtual Nature Watch with Julie's assistant's dog Precious. We have virtual gaming and sport with Josh, and we have lots and lots of poetry because on a Wednesday, in more usual times, we would be running the Pop Up Poetry Club in East Ham, free for any disabled person and anybody they want to bring with them. In some ways, this is even better if we could be doing both, because then we can reach out to people who can't get to us in East Ham. So if you have poems that you would like us to read on air, or you can film yourself reading a poem and send it in, please do. We have a very full join in from home program on our website www.together2012.org.uk, and I'll put that up on the screen in a minute. In the Join In From Home program, you can join in with a wide range of activities: film, dance, art, music. And for poetry, we're inviting you to write a poem with the theme of Together. And as part of our Disability History Month festival in November, we'll be publishing a print anthology, and everybody who takes part in the project will, of course, be posted a copy. So that's poems on the theme of Together for our anthology, but poems on any subject at all, we would be delighted to have. And we have some contributions that we'll be reading later. But first, what's everybody been getting up to since Monday?
Wimbledon started on Monday, but it didn't. It's contradictorily. It is on the BBC Two, I think it is, from 1:30 onwards, and today's was a men's singles going, or two men's singles, with I think probably about 15 years between them. So some very young players, and then subsequent match with them a little bit older. It was introduced by the lovely Claire Balding, so that was a bit of fun to start with. Also,
Is that going on for the whole of the next 2 weeks, as Wimbledon would have been?
it is. It's also on the BBC Sport app if you've got internet access, and they've got a nice full, much better program on the internet rather than actually on Earth People's television. Um, but it's still interesting. It depends on what you've got access to and what you prefer. There's currently a spacewalk, which is very exciting. It's the two guys who went up, whose names I always forget, so forgive me for reading them. It's Chris Cassidy and Robert Benkin, the two astronauts who went up in the space launch a few weeks ago. They're doing, I think this is their first spacewalk, and they're sorting out some battery problems, and they're sorting out routing some leads, some Ethernet leads, and some cables, and so on.
Sounds like just down here, doesn't it?
It does a bit. That's what made me think of it. But that's on YouTube, the NASA channel currently on YouTube, and it's actually fascinating to watch. I thought it would be like watching paint dry, but it's not. It's watching them trying to fiddle around with nuts and bolts in space, and there's a slight edginess to it. Are they going to go flying off? They lost a mirror. Somebody lost a mirror last week, so that was quite interesting. Apparently, it causes no threat to space travel. But I also wanted to say happy birthday to Debbie Harry. I think it's I love Debbie Harry, and Blondie, and I love the songs, and I think
The Surgeoners are looking really mystified. Do you play music as a musician?
I love Debbie Harry. I've loved Debbie Harry since I was a teenager. I can assure you.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I remember Julie getting us to leave a club a few years ago just before she turned up, and that was a bit of an own goal, wasn't it, Julie?
It was really, because she's I just think she's wonderful, and I think at 75, which is her current age today, she is a real inspiration to those of us who are approaching that age. In as much as she's still absolutely solid, her politics are solid. She continues to support AIDS. Her voice is solid. She's not trying to do things which her voice can't reach anymore. And she's just, generally speaking, I think she's an altogether well-rounded, appearing, and very iconic figure.
In fact, I thought their latest album was really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
I didn't know they had a latest album, but before any of you rush off to turn over, I should remind you that the recording of this show is usually up around 8 o'clock. It can take longer for the captions to load, and it can all take a lot longer if the internet is running slowly, or indeed just occasionally the show is up much quicker. That has the captions embedded and also the sound engineered for any issues that might have taken place in the recording, just to make it as accessible as possible if you have impaired hearing. But please, I think this sounds like the spacewalk is going to go on for quite some time to come.
7 hours worth, they reckoned.
So you might want to stick with us for coming up, Swimming in the Bath, a film poem indeed by Act Up Newham, Pet Cam, Virtual Nature Watch, Virtual Sport, or should I say more virtual sport. But let's get down to the poetry, because Wednesday is Poetry Day. We haven't got our virtual writer in residence with us today, Penny Pepper, because she's writing, unsurprisingly. But I know Robin is going to read us a poem in a little bit. But I thought we could maybe talk a little about the process of writing poetry, if anybody wants to kick off.
Okay. Well, I suppose I can kick off. I mean, I started writing poetry at a really young age. Kind of 7 or 8. Just always had some, always wanted to write down things that I was thinking. Which is a really weird thing because I don't have a huge pile of poems, so I'm not quite sure what that says. I probably have actually if I dig them all out. In fact, there's a crate of them over there somewhere.
Apologies.
And I how do you? I think just like when I talked about songwriting a number of weeks ago, for me, poems come from different inspirations. Um, Sometimes it is literally as I did for the Together poem that I've written, was I took the theme of what Together was meaning to me at that moment of writing it in lockdown, and then kind of framed a way of thinking about it. And I was, so in that case, I was thinking about that nothing operates in the world on its own. It just doesn't. There is nothing that exists without some kind of relationship to something else, and so that was the kind of basis of that poem. But often it'll be, I'll be out and I'll hear a phrase, or I'll see something happening and it'll give me a phrase, and that phrase I'll write that. I mean, the great thing about mobile phones, I mean, I used to take a book everywhere with me. Mobile phone is even better because you can speak it in or put it into notes, and I'll just come up with. I'll end up, my phone will have a series of titles or opening lines or even mid lines to it, and then what I'll do is I'll try to, when I want to write that poem, I will find a way of getting into the mood that poem is speaking about, and and I don't know if that's an easy thing to do. It's just something I can do. So it's much less about there being um, the words really matter because the words tell the story, but the story's there first rather than they're not descriptions of pretty flowers. And if it was about just, even if it was about pretty flowers, it would be about the pretty flowers and what they're saying to me and the relationship with the butterfly that's just landed on it or whatever it is. Sorry, I'm not sure if that helps or just
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I mean, I was particularly interested that you started writing young. So did I, but then I stopped again. And I think I must have stopped by the time I went to secondary school, although I did go to a very kind of military style, non creative secondary school in a garrison town. So perhaps that was not surprising. But yes, I mean, I somewhere in a box have got two or three kind of sets of, pretty dreadful rhymes, but written out very carefully in coloured pen and illustrated and so on. And I just stopped and I didn't start again until I was about 35, even though I was working as a journalist and writer and writing cartoons and doing all sorts of other writing. And I didn't really start until we set up the Pop Up Poetry Club. And it's only in the last year, thanks very much indeed to the Lottery Community Fund, that we've actually had staffing for what we call our clubs program. So our clubs program runs every weekday morning, usually. We've got alternative arrangements at the moment in East Ham. And those clubs, as we've said earlier with the Pop Up Poetry Club, are entirely free. They're volunteer led, but obviously you need somebody to facilitate them. And what used to happen is I would have a hot desk in the boiler room of the community centre and I would set up poetry, whiz it over in my wheelchair to the hot desk and do my emails and things and kind of keep popping backwards and forwards. But on occasions, I would have time to write as well. The way we run the club, and I'm going to get an update from Julie in a minute. We start about 10:30 with a cup of tea, and we share poems. Then we talk about them. We write our own poems, and then share those poems. So we set topics and things. And I realized after a while that I had built up, literally dozens of poems just by sitting down alongside the rest of the group as and when I had time and just dashing something off according to what that day's topic was. And that really helped me about a year ago to start doing the occasional gig. And I just started that really when COVID cracked on. But last week I read poems at Survivors Poetry Cafe, and I think it was called Pandemics, possibly last week, possibly the week before, for the Highgate Festival. And yeah, so really, again, I've done much longer spoken word pieces live in the noughties. I've performed those all over the world, but the poetry was really very late. And I think because I just felt that you can't really call yourself a poet, or you can't call what you write poems. And I'm very much on a mission now to say everybody can write poetry, and it doesn't have to rhyme, it doesn't have to be spelt properly, grammar is completely irrelevant, it's all about the
so
poet.
is in my poetry. And I mean, I think that, all that things I said about planning and stuff. I was trying to remember if I'd said this the other week, but myself, EJ, who some of you met on Monday, and Tracy, our back office assistant, and my wife, um, we happened to be in London the night that the poetry cafe was running in the church, and we just came along, mainly because obviously we needed feeding and we hadn't had any dinner. Um, but I don't know if you'll remember this, Julie, but we just turned up, and I was inspired to write a poem, and I think it was called Welcome. Um,
Yes, because we read it to the group, and I just yes, it was we had the pop up poetry cafe at that point. So what we were doing was once a month we were having a free cafe. We're certainly hoping to have that again in the future, but in the meantime, good time for a plug. Tomorrow is the first Thursday of the month, and instead of having our live music club on the first Friday, we now have Zoom together on the first Thursday, which is live music and poetry. We obviously can't publish the link, but I will put up the address on the screen if you would like to email us at info@together2012.org.uk. Then we can send you the link. As with the real clubs, it's not about having to perform. You're very welcome just as audience. But tomorrow night, Thursday, from 7 to 8, we have Zoom together, and we will be welcoming people to do poetry and music then. Shall we put on Act Up Newham's poem and then come back to discussion?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, so I'm just going to take this information off the bottom of the screen again for a minute and ask you to mute your microphones.
I wanted to go swimming. No. I swim in the bath.
Don't go
out.
The door is closed.
Wait.
I wanted to meet my friends.
No.
No. I meet friends on the beach.
Don't go
Out.
No, the door is closed.
Wait.
I wanted to be in shows. No. I make films.
Don't go
Out.
The door is closed.
Wait.
I wait at home so I don't get sick. I swim in the bath.
Well, that was another great film from Act Up Newham. What they've been doing, they're our associate drama company, by the way, for anybody who hasn't seen their work before. And each member of the company has led on the work each week. We've had a film from them each week, and that was Stera's poem, I Want to Go Swimming. So, any thoughts on that, Robin and Josh?
Oh, it's great. I mean, I was actually watching it thinking, do you know what? They could put this on after the 6:30 news or whatever as an infomercial on how to stay home, because it's utterly inclusive. I mean, I'd be interesting to know who did the cartoon. You know, the drawings behind as well.
Yes, sorry, I'm glad you mentioned that because I slipped up on the audio description yet again. There was a whole range of very clever backgrounds for people speaking, mostly hand drawn. I think quite a lot of them came from Pritesh Patel, whose work we've seen. And some from Stera, and probably some from Glory, who's part of our art club and a member of ACT UP. But yes, what we saw was a sort of what's become almost like a classic Zoom shot, hasn't it? The sort of checkerboard effect of 8 different people speaking with Stera in front of them, and then lots of these hand drawn backgrounds. I've just, we always say this, but I'm just so impressed at the fact that they've been able to produce a piece of work every single week, and short films, because they've also been producing short films about, for example, Stera's artwork. And as we mentioned on Monday, shielding is not coming to an end today, or even Saturday, or even next Monday, although there are some important changes on Monday, which we will go through again in due course once we've deciphered and interpreted the letters from the government. But we hope that shielders will be treated like everybody else by the 1st of August, but only if it's safe to do so. And I think it's true, again, if you read the details of any of the government information, that we should be staying at home, all of us, whoever we are, whenever we can, for a very long time to come. That doesn't mean don't support your local shops and businesses, but there's ways to do that without going out, and certainly without sitting less than a metre from the next person.
I just very quickly want to pop in this as well. What I noticed in the letter from the government was that there was also some very useful advice on staying out of the heat and being careful in the heat. So, as well as the COVID stuff, there was also, sort of an increased awareness of the environment.
I think that's very helpful. Like I said, I want to get back to poetry now, but I think that is very helpful. We talked about the dangers of the heat during the recent heat wave, and I'm quite sure we'll be doing that again. And I think it's true. If you haven't got much energy and you haven't been walking, the last thing you want to do is suddenly go, "Oh, I'm allowed to go and exercise now." Sit on a bench, collapse, and so yes, perhaps on Monday we might talk a bit more about being sensible in the heat. But in the meantime, I would just like to finish with some final words on poetry, and also with a poem for Robin. Julie, could you tell us, there's been a delay, hasn't there, in restarting the Pop Up Poetry Club by phone?
There has. I've been in touch with the system designers, and they're getting back to me at 9 o'clock on Monday morning with the anticipated start again date of the 8th of July, which is next Wednesday, I believe. Not
Yeah.
having a calendar in front of me, I have to make a random guess. But yeah, it looks as if it's going to be going ahead. We will get clarification of that, and people who want to take part in the poetry from home sessions do need to contact info at together or noel at together.org.uk, just to express an interest and to link up with Noel so he can get the phone numbers and set up the phone calls so that you can take part.
I mean, it's a real indictment of the systems today. It has taken us since March to try and find a company that will allow us to, number one, bring in everybody on the telephone and not on a computer, bearing in mind that almost none of the people we work with regularly have a computer or broadband, but also operate it by phone. So we finally found a system where you can have a pretty much an unlimited number of people joining a phone call, and with us critically paying for the costs, because we know that the last thing people want to do is be run out of credit and have to leave the house to go out if it's not safe, or indeed if they can't afford it. So the idea is it will be as free as everything else we do. But yeah, it's just extraordinary that these days, when you say to people you want to have a group chat on the phone, they go, "Oh, yes, darling, of course," because you just need to click on this link here on your computer, and as long as your broadband is working. So we had a slight hiccup because I'd ascertained everything, I thought, when we booked it. And then they said, "Well, we're going to give you these special phones that link into your broadband." And I had to go, I'm afraid the people running the clubs don't have broadband, because we're all disabled people. We're effectively, well, I would say like everybody else, but of course, Robin and I are not, because the nature of our freelance work means that we've got studios and are able to bring you together unlocked. So, on that happy note, let's have a poem from Robin, and then we'll move on to Precious and Nature Watch.
Okay. So this seems to run through a lot of my poetry, the idea of hope. And this particular poem is called The Illumination of Hope. Come hither, come gather, come out of the shadows, Come clear your fogged minds. Let your inquisition grow. Turn introspection to speculation. Disaggregate all your knows. Rivulets, streams, tributaries flow to an ocean of hope. Come dip in your toes. High, high in the sky, a great ball of fire sustains all that we can see. Is this the light that defines what I do, shapes my future and all that is me? Be sure it brings health and food to our table. But is it the light that forever enables, that shows us the path, that acts as our guide, that puts peace in our hearts, that helps us decide? Do I need this fire to emblazon what is hope? Or is it hope that flames my conscience, my sentience, my aspirations, my morality? Yet hope needs a fuel, a catalyst, a source of ignition. Hope is alive, not simply positive premonition. Alive in our hearts, hope is what gives us fight. Hope is our belief, our truth, and our light. Hope is sustenance that nourishes our well-being, that gives us strength in adversity, brings solace to the dying. If music is the food of love, then hope is the song that sings in our hearts, the nectar that sweetens and strengthens and guides us in our path of living lives which fulfill and enrich and give meaning to the lost, that makes us shepherds with staffs, with fog lights and horns, an iridescence which seeks and illuminates every dark corner, challenging every fear, bringing calm where there was none before. It brings us together, a unification of thought. But together we must separate and share what we are taught. Take your enlightenment and shine with an radiant incandescence. Be the ignition, the fusion, the human spirited effervescence. Be all that is hope, and let hope be all that is you. Open your hearts and your souls, and hope will show you what you must do.
Oh, that was great. Thank you very much, Robin. I loved the bit about hope being the song that's being played, of music, etc., etc. So, I think we will now hand over from the sublime to the faintly ridiculous, or actually quite ridiculous. And Julie can give us
Thank you.
some commentary as her
Which film
assistant
to
dog
talk about?
Precious checks out the state of the garden this morning. And I should add that Stera, who featured very heavily in the poem, has now got a camera and harness for her assistant's dog Merlot. So we're looking forward to seeing some films from Merlot, which will be, I think, almost entirely inside until they're allowed to go out for exercise, but still very interesting. We do like to see what the dogs can do with the camera, particularly when it's often rather better than we can. So here we go, Precious.
Here we are. Precious is going outside. I think she really identifies with what you were just saying about having been in lockdown for quite a long time and needing to get moving. It's taking her a little bit of time this morning. She's going into the familiar piece of garden, which is filmed every week, and actually doesn't change except for the occasional new bit of green. But she's thinking about it all, and she's looking around. Are there any birds? No, not this morning. What's her brother doing? Oh, he's potted off. Oh, here he is. Yes, he's the busy one this morning. Precious is contemplating and considering perhaps the sort of poetry that Robin writes, hopeful and happy. Here we are, just moving out. I think having a bit of a pee, actually, thinking about it. And here comes brother, pausing, sniffing around, going back. No, it's too hot, really, even now. Thank you very much.
Well, I think that was the most useless film your dog has made in months. Didn't do anything.
No, each week there's sort of like she achieves new depths of uselessness, and I think this week must be perhaps the deepest of the deep. But she did actually move. I mean, there's been occasions when she's gone out and come back straight in again, but she did have a pause and a think.
And to be fair, my dog Jazz won't even consider wearing a harness and a GoPro. So we have to be grateful for the fact that Julie, of course, runs the Together 2012 Photography and Film Club, which we have on the second Monday of every month. So it would be a week next Monday. So what would that be? 15th of July. We will have a good old session on the Monday about filmmaking again. So, I loved the poem, Robin. Not so sure about the dog's film.
I thought the poem was great, although I must confess there was a moment of complete distraction when you were talking about rivulets of nose, and I thought, oh, is my nose dripping? Like,
You know, it took me ages to write the plural of the word no,
yes.
and I had to look it up because it is actually spelled Noes. Or at least that's the version I found.
Yeah, I think that's right. But it's I love the fact it's hopeful. There was a lot to think about. It's erudite, and you know it's quite profound actually. I really enjoyed it. Thank you for sharing.
Pleasure.
Yes, I mean, I was trying to think as somebody who's come late to poetry about what makes me write. And sometimes, and probably most often, even still, it is just about sitting down, knowing that I need to run the pop up poetry club and we've chosen a theme, and therefore I'm going to write about that theme. But otherwise, it's very often things that are just going round and round in my mind or I feel very strongly about. And you, I think when I was from the age of about 21 until my mid 30s, I worked as a journalist. And I think you could write thousands of words, or in fact, a book or dozens of books. And sometimes you can just say it much more clearly in a single frame cartoon or a poem. And I think the older I get, the kind of more I appreciate brevity. So that's part of it. I've also, for the last 20 years, had some lower brain damage that affects the way I speak. I find it difficult to find words. So I think it's a very controlled way of being able to say exactly what I want to say without forgetting what I'm saying halfway through the sentence or pausing where I have to think of the word. So yes, it really depends. I wrote the longest poem that I think I've ever written last week, but it's really too sad. Perhaps the subject matter is just not suitable, if you like, for afternoon television. But it was very much around the impact of COVID-19 on care homes and the disproportionate impact that's had on people from the LGBT communities. And again, that was something I'd felt very strongly about for weeks. And it just suddenly these stories started coming out in rhyme. So I kind of understand sometimes when people say, oh, yes, it was just there waiting for me to find it, but that doesn't happen very often. I think the great advantage with the club where you just pick a theme is you don't feel at all inspired, but once you've got a subject, then I think that can really help get you going. Some other techniques that we've used in the pop-up poetry club is usually we would have shelves of books. We've got a small poetry library and we have that in shelves on wheels so we can bring them around the table easily. And people just do a random selection. So they randomly select a book, which might be one poet or it might be an anthology. They flip through it over a cup of tea. They find a poem that just speaks to them. They read it out to the others. And sometimes they'll then write down the keywords and the challenge they make them to themselves, and it's not a technique I developed, was just to use those words to write a poem or to write a poem on the same subject or a poem responding to a poem. Because we've talked before that lots of people don't feel incredibly creative in lockdown. They want to do things, but it's getting that original idea. And we've looked at a lot of ways in which you can make original work, but you don't have to start with an original idea, if that makes sense. Do you have any more tips, Julie?
No, not really. No, not off the top of my head. No, I think you've covered it. For me, I tend to write in the middle of the night when it's quiet. There's less distraction. Um, and I get on a theme and I develop the theme rather than having the story in my mind. But that's just me. Everybody's different, I think.
I mean, one of the ways that when I've done songwriting and poetry writing workshops um, is to do what I would call a free thinking session. Um, and, you come up with a topic or a couple of topics and then literally get people to say what they're thinking. And then you write up everything that's said. And you might be talking about, I don't know, an action in London, something going on in Parliament Square, and someone will go, "Oh, I've got toothache." You still write it up because you don't know, and it's really funny sometimes how the incidental drives a major part of a piece of writing sometimes. But it's a really good way of people feeling that they've contributed to the creative journey. Good. um and then that then inspires them, and then everyone can use everyone else's lines or the thoughts that the lines provoke in them. A little bit harder to do over a phone, because then you've got someone has got to write down, each person would have to write things down. But it is actually still another good way of doing group writing.
And of course, we do have a group facilitator. So we will leave it. Well, we won't leave it there. We will move on to talk about virtual sport and gaming because that's what we do at this time on a Wednesday. But that's not to say you can't write poems about games and sport. And in fact, lots and lots of people do, which is why I'm saying it's not an entirely complete change of subject. And I was thinking about short poems and haiku and thinking we should get the lovely Penny Pepper to come on air and explain to us how to write a really short poem in the form of the Japanese haiku. But in the meantime, Josh, over to you.
Yeah, so kind of two things. We'll talk about sport first, briefly, and then move into a kind of slightly larger conversation around gaming because we've finally finished the game that we've been playing. You'll find out why he just gave me a talk to the hand later. So sport-wise, we talked last week around wheelchair tennis being removed from the US Open. They have now kind of, I was going to say, no pun intended, rolled back on that decision, and it is now going to it's back on the program for September, which is great. I mean, it'll be 15 years this year since wheelchair tennis was included in the US Open, so it's kind of a big year. Really, I didn't realise that until I was reading a little bit more about it. And one of the other things we wanted to talk about, we've talked a lot about kind of Black Lives Matter and those movements. Formula One is coming back this weekend in Austria, which I'm sure Julie's very excited about. She's nodding for those of you that can't see. But Lewis Hamilton has been very kind of outspoken around the need for more diversity in motorsport and in Formula One, and Mercedes have been quite kind of supportive of that. And I think it's really nice to kind of see change, not necessarily change, but because it's too soon, but to see that things are happening, that the ball is rolling on those changes, after all of the kind of protests and things, that it hasn't just been forgotten about. And then the final thing on sport that I just wanted to touch on briefly, I know this isn't a sport that you could do, but very briefly, it links in with Formula One. Alex Zanardi, who was a Formula One driver, who lost both of his legs in an F1 crash, and then came back to race cars for a little bit, but he's a really successful Paralympic hand biker. Had a crash last week in a race, and he's kind of still in hospital in quite a tough position. So just kind of wish him the best, really, and hope that he recovers. But then on to Jolly, I think.
Just before the gaming, I was going to say yes, absolutely, and let's keep us posted about that. Our own little sporting interlude is the Paralympics, where we race our clockwork toys, and I don't want to forget about that. I thought it might go quite well between sport and gaming. I've filmed it on a different aspect because we think we might start putting them on our Instagram stream. I had a whole range of new clockwork competitors arrived. I think we mentioned that earlier, and most of them seem to go around in circles. Now, that could be great if we were doing athletics around a track. So, I'm working on the track on the basis that with the level of infection, we will be inside for quite some time to come. But in the meantime, we're back to last week's caterpillar competitors, and I'm going to ask you to choose orange or green.
Well, I'm going green because it's my favourite colour.
Yeah, we'll go green. I think green was unfairly stripped of victory last week on a dubious photo finish. So we'll go for a redemption for green.
And so our teddy bear is this week's competitor who has the right to wear the medal is called Fergus. He's a golden brown bear. And I think he's probably nearly 50 years old, come to think about it. Oh, Julie's going to hold him here. Your teddy bear.
This is Bob.
Oh, Bob. So he really is dressed in a police officer's outfit.
He really is.
So Bob, the police bear, is going to race Fergus, the bear.
Naked
Bear
bear.
from London 2012 versus Birmingham 2022. So I'm going to put it on and leave you guys to do the commentary.
Let's hope we got a flat track this week. No interference from the cats.
Appears to be a streaker, and a streaker that's very confused by
Yeah,
the the security is sort of off the field of play.
Oh, I don't know. They're taking a deviation, but they're taking the same deviation. I mean, I don't know if there's going to be some kind of serious inquiry into this.
If we're going purely on distance covered, then green has taken it by an absolute mile.
Yeah.
Orange appears to have.
We trust in green.
You do trust in green. So for anybody who couldn't see these ridiculous caterpillars racing up my tiny little landing, pursued by a fluffy black cat, we lost.
I'm going up to Bob. I shall award this wonderful gold medal. There we go.
And where did the gold medal come from this week, Surgeoners?
This one is from the CP World Games in 1986. Sorry, there you go. Having to read it.
Another vintage year.
Yeah. Super year for gold medals.
I still haven't quite worked out why you guys seem to win more often than we do.
All the time.
When I'm the one doing the filming.
We keep telling you that winning is a habit, and
Well, it certainly is. I mean, what's difficult for me with lacking short-term memory is I genuinely can't remember anyway who's won. So when it comes to choosing, but we can't obviously very crap at the what did you call it? The sort of bias, the unconscious bias.
This is a true story. I got banned from all guess the weight, guess the number of sweets in a jar, how it kind of thing at Emily's school fates, because I always won.
Well, on that happy note, we're always glad to be on the winning team. Let's move back to Josh for some gaming before we finish.
So 2 or 3 weeks ago now, we talked about that we'd started playing a cooperative only game called A Way Out. in which you control two people. It starts out having to escape from prison, and kind of escalates from there. And then kind of over the weekend, I think it was Sunday night, we finally finished it, and it's only kind of 5 chapters, but they're kind of an hour and a bit long each. And Robin is less than pleased with the ending. So, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't played A Way Out. But do you want to talk about what you're not talking to me anymore?
I had my heart ripped out. I trusted my partner. And I'm not going to give the game away because actually, for those who've not played it, it would spoil it. But suffice to say that one of the characters, being the one I was playing, ended up very dead. and
Betrayed by my character.
Yeah, and betrayed. But what's really, really interesting is that even though Josh got frustrated at my inability to operate a controller, and I got frustrated at Josh's frustration, as we I don't think I realised quite how much I'd invested in the character, and it was really bizarre because when my demise happened,
Occurred.
it was like, because you just imagine, you think, when you play games, you survive, you die, you might die many times, but you don't actually die because you just restart or whatever.
I've got some games with you.
Well, okay, but so, and every time I play golf with Josh, nobody ever dies on well, not in the game anyway.
Yeah.
But no, and as I kind of got used to playing it, and the cooperative side was fun, and I actually found a skill in the game that I was better than Josh at, which is driving a boat while being shot at.
No, it was baseball that you beat me at.
Oh, and that as well. It was 2 areas, wasn't it? Yeah.
I shot you a lot.
But it's like really stupid because like you go around the game and then there'll be a dart board and you go, oh, we'll go and play darts. So you're supposed to be escaping prison, or you've escaped prison and you're on the run, but then you can go and pick up the darts and actually play darts, and we played baseball. Yeah, but it's some basketball shooting on the way round and stuff. So actually,
how we didn't get caught, I don't know.
So despite the
yeah, it just, from a complete games novice, it just sounds absolutely fascinating, but also underlines why we're covering gaming. It's not just because it's something to do while those of us who are shielding can't leave the house. It's such an art form in its own right, and that's very much recognised for young people within the Arts Award programme, where you can pretty much look at game design, you can look at game designers, you can look at the narrative of games, you can teach, you can almost do your entire Arts Award on gaming were it not for the fact that you're encouraged to explore new art forms and bring them into your practice. If anybody is interested in the Arts Award programme, we are offering a free online Arts Award programme to young disabled people who are shielding or being home educated. I'm going to put our information up on the screen again so you can see, but we're info@together2012.org.uk. If you're under 25 and you're interested in doing project-based, nationally recognised arts qualifications, then do get in touch, and our youth development worker, the artist Hazel Brill, will get back to you very shortly. I wanted to read one more poem which has been sent in to us. This is from Graham, from an organisation called Shaping Our Lives, which I would really recommend any disabled person to look into. And he had a friend called Kate who has been sending out a poem every single day. Not her own poems necessarily, but very much as we were talking about the Pop Up Poetry Club, we're sharing poems that people might enjoy. And after 100 days and 100 poems, she asked people if she should stop. And this was, everybody said no who was getting them. And this was his response, which is called Poetry Please. Pleased you've kept the poem each day on track. To me, maybe others, it's great they've been kept back to back. Can't imagine how otherwise the day could start as COVID lockdown drains sapful purpose. But the poem each day brings a change of heart. It's a wonderful treat not to be missed. But where's Benjamin and Simon? You know who I mean, whose poetry someone has surely kissed. I'm one of those inspired by you to have a go. Never before having tried this expressive form. Each day now, but not all, left with a can do glow. So, wonder of wonders, keep them coming, please. There's an old fan here itching to say, thank you for such pleasure, including the teas. On we go. Poetry, please. Thanks very much indeed from that, Graham. And I've got more poetry from Graham for next week. So it's probably time we began to start talking about Friday, where we have our usual items: dressing up to go out to stay in, and something for the weekend. Dressing up to go out to stay in, we encourage you to send us your photos and videos of you dressed up, perhaps for a virtual event, perhaps for an imaginary event, perhaps for something you'd like to do but is no longer happening at the moment. Just an opportunity to empty your wardrobe, have a lot of fun, take some selfies, send them to us, and we will be dressed up. And something for the weekend, we will be recommending things to do online all weekend. So if you have an activity planned and you'd like us to publicise it, or you're an artist, you've released a new project online, you'd like people to have a look at over the weekend, then please do get in touch. That is info@together2012.org.uk. And I should also add that the little videos we've shown here and links to everything we've mentioned will be on the highlights and links page, which is just under the Together Unlocked TV link on the together2012.org.uk website. Over to you in the West Midlands.
Yeah, well, I mean, we're halfway through yet another week. I mean, it's some ways it seems like it's been a long time, and other ways, 100 days seems to have gone in a flash. I mean, we've made ourselves busy with the shows, our own creativity, doing our swimming work. That being said, I won't be sad when I am actually allowed out of the house to explore some greenery or whatever. Yeah, we'll be planning for the weekend. As I say, I might be a slightly briefer appearance. I'll see if I can get something sorted out for Friday. And I just want, yeah, I think do you know what I was saying about listening to things and listening to other people? I have a poetry title that I'm going to use from Graham's poetry. So there you go. And on that note from me, I'll say goodbye for today, and I'll see you Friday.
Goodbye from me, and we'll see you on Friday as well.
Well, as we've got another couple of minutes, I'm going to come back to Julie and see if she has any final words to inspire us or entertain us, or if there's anything else that you forgot to mention around the spacewalk, Wimbledon, or anything else you've been watching.
Thank you, Ju. Caught a little bit on the hop there, if I could but hop. I think interesting tweet that I saw about Wimbledon, just following the theme, from Billie Jean King, who said it's the first time in nearly 60 years that she hasn't come to Wimbledon. She's been to every other Wimbledon, prior to this one. And I was really quite thrown by that, because although I can remember her as a young thing, sort of like challenging away and working her way through and dealing with a lot of difficulties as well, personal difficulties. She was somebody who was desperately attacked over the years by various media outlets and by a lot of prejudice as well. She was at one point, I think, very, very isolated. And I've got an awful lot of admiration for that woman. I might not agree with her politics. I don't always know what they are. but that doesn't matter. The fact is that she's absolutely consistent in what she does, and that is to support tennis, to support diversity in sport, to participate and to encourage by such active participation, and to put herself out there, when an awful lot of people at that time when she was starting off just weren't. Before Martina Navratilova came along, Billie Jean was very, very isolated because of her sexuality.
Right, so we're going to put Julie is going to find me a link to Billie Jean King. I'm sure over the next couple of weeks we'll be talking more about Wimbledon, because it's one of the few events on the sporting calendar that we usually go to see in person. I think it's a bit like Pride and Glastonbury at the weekend. We're going to hit a lot of dates at the moment where we would say, well, we were expecting to do this, but actually we're celebrating at home instead and looking forward to next year when hopefully everything is much, much safer. In the meantime, we will see you at 3 o'clock on Friday. And stay safe, stay home, stay creative, stay well.
Stay happy. Bye bye.
Bye.
Bye.